On the Art Lewis Show. Busy week for us, and later on Thursday, of course, is our radiothon for the benefit of the Rescue Ministries of Mid-Michigan. Looking forward to doing that again. It's our, I forgot now, 16th, 17th year or more, maybe 21st. I'm not sure. It's been a long time, and we appreciate your support for it. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, open phones this morning at 11 o'clock, we'll learn about Great Lakes PACE. But for this hour, we're going to spend it with Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet. And we say good morning to her this morning.
Good morning.
Decked out in her American League shirt, American flag shirt.
You know, I work in Congress.
Very patriotic.
Yes. And most importantly, warm.
Warm. That's, yes. Boy, I'll tell you what. This has been an unusual December and November so far.
At least we have snow. Unpopular opinion, I know, but if it's going to be cold, I want snow. I want the prettiness of snow.
My philosophy is it can snow everywhere but my driveway. Matter of fact, I mean, with the last 5 inches we had recently, I had to get out my tractor and snowblower. $211 later for a new tractor battery, I was able to plow.
Oh, well, yeah, it's always that first big snow of the season when you realize your snowblower doesn't work.
Yeah, well, normally, and I started during the summer, too, and it just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, a number of things. I know there's a number of things you're working on, but I've got to start with what's in the news.
Which thing?
We could spend days. I want to start with the interdiction of the drug boats and the destruction of those boats, and then more recently the second attack supposedly on these two individuals. From your vantage point in Congress, where do you think these things are from a legal standpoint?
You know, I think that we have to spend some time seriously looking into this. So first, let me just say that, of course, we need to stop the flow of drugs into this country. Specifically, we need to stop the flow of fentanyl, which is killing thousands of Americans. The thing is that's not coming up from Venezuela, and we don't have any evidence of what's on those boats. So I think
we have a pretty good idea. Don't you think?
We have a pretty good idea, but it's pretty good idea enough to bomb, and that's the question. I mean, so
I don't know. How do you? Here's my question on that. Fentanyl is the bad guy, no doubt about it.
Sure.
And China is a big supplier of it.
Yep.
But it ends up mixed with these other drugs. So somehow you have to stop the flow one way or another.
No question.
And from my standpoint, if these fast boats, which is what they're called, are carrying drugs, are they not legitimate targets?
I think they likely are legitimate targets, but here's the problem. We've got no information has been shared with Congress or the relevant committees, right?
I'll agree with that.
So
that flow of information's been
stifled. So when we hear stories, which, by the way, we're getting too much of this information from the news and not enough directly from the Department of Defense and from the White House. Mm-hmm. And really, when I say we've got to look into it, what I mean is that we have to do our job in Congress of understanding what's going on, why they believe there are drugs on those boats. And, the only information that I have seen about the so-called double tap of going back and obliterating the remains with survivors, which is very clearly against international war. It's an international war crime if that's what happened. So from a congressional standpoint, it's our obligation to go forward and say, okay, show us, give us the evidence. That's our job. Congress does oversight.
Has there been no closed door meetings on these things? Well, I can understand if they don't want to give up their intelligence machine on how they get the information.
Oh, of course.
And go behind closed doors and give it to you, at least you'd have it.
Not so far. So,
because the other side of that, and you mentioned you get it from the media. The reason you get it from the media is somebody in your house leaks. You understand that, right?
Welcome to Washington.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Which is
absolutely true.
Which is also true of, unfortunately, and I say this as a member of the media, unfortunately, it's also true of closed-door meetings.
No, I think that that's true as well. But let me just say a couple of points in there. One is that getting information from the media is not how members of Congress should do their jobs.
Don't
particularly
disagree.
now when
It's supposed to be the other way around.
So much media arrives at a conclusion and then looks for facts to support that, right? So we can say, regardless of whether we're looking at to the right or the left, that's not actually where we should be getting our information. The other piece of it is that we have to be able to understand what's happening, particularly the leadership from both parties in those committees of Armed Services, Foreign Affairs, Intelligence. They need to be fully briefed, and that has actually been the way that we have worked as a country since the very beginning, right? So it's not about asking to disclose, very privileged security issues, intelligence issues. That all has to be well guarded. But there are a lot of things in place to make sure that happens. But we can't just have the Department of Defense and the White House do what they're doing in Venezuela without having using a process that we use in order to make sure that the evidence is there and the oversight is happening. And that's a limited number of people. That's not every member of Congress. But this notion, and the thing that really worries me, is the degree to which in Congress we've just given up our authority and our oversight authority in so many places. Tariffs is an example. That the United
get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But there are 3 branches of government for a reason, and Congress is the place where the people's voices are represented, and that is a responsibility we should take very seriously. If those are legitimate drug trafficking boats, and then we're doing the right thing. But if they are not, then we have to have a conversation. Yep. We have to have some oversight.
It would be, and if we could assume for a minute, it's a bad word, but I'll use it anyway. If we assume they are legitimate drug boats and that the strikes are legitimate, it's the first time in my memory that the war on drugs has actually meant
actual
something.
War. Yeah. Well, the question is why Venezuela? Because the majority of drugs flowing into this country are not coming out of Venezuela.
He's not Trump's favorite person. Let's start there.
right. So, part of the issue that I have is a strategy to stop the flow of drugs is incredibly important. You're talking to someone who spent my entire life working on behalf of kids and families.
Yeah.
This is a really important issue for me. But when it can't be done in an emotional decision based on which leader you're irritated with. It has to be done strategically to actually stop the most of the places where the majority of the drugs are coming from. And Venezuela is not that place.
Well, I think it has to be multiple. It has to be multiple strikes at multiple locations, not just one country, because it's coming from all over.
It is coming from all over. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's dangerous.
All right. We'll take a break, come back. We're going to talk about a number of other things that the Congresswoman is involved in, and we will do that when we return here on the Art Lewis Show. Let me take a moment to talk about Quick Lane Freeland at McDonald Ford. Winter tires are important, and yes, there is a difference in winter tires, as you will learn in a moment. But I want you also to know, if you're in the market for tires, Quick Lane Freeland sells all their tires for just $5 over cost. $5 over cost. That's all you pay. Now, as I said, there is a difference between winter tires and the tires you drive on normally. And to explain it to us is John from Quick Lane Freeland.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop into Quick Lane Freeland today for a tire check. While you're there, you might want to get your cooling system checked, too, for the winter. And stop over in the McDonald Ford lot. Take a look at all the new lineup of Ford automobiles and their pre-owned lot with an extensive array of automobiles for all price ranges. It all happens in Freeland at Quick Lane Freeland and McDonald Ford, two names that stand ready to help you with all your automotive needs. Stop in today.
My name is Angie Gouja. I've been an
Studio with me is Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet. All right, there's a number of things you've been working on. The one on the top of the list here is anti-corruption, and there's been a lot of talk about it for years and years about folks in Washington making a fortune off their jobs and all of that stuff. Where are we with legislation that's actually going to, I don't know, put a halt to it, but certainly slow it down?
Certainly we can address it, right? I think the thing that's been surprising me, I mean, I've been in Congress for 11 months now.
Oh, you must be a millionaire
yes,
already.
Right.
Oh,
no,
they said you were before you went to Congress. I forgot
they
about
did,
that.
and I'm still looking for that money.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're looking at every branch that has incredible weak points, and there's legislation, and has been for years, legislation ready to go to address that. So let's talk about Congress. The very easy thing to do is to ban stock trading. It seems so obvious. I have yet to talk to a single person not in Washington who thinks that's a bad idea. Of course, we should ban members of Congress from stock trading. We're privy to all of this information that influences the market. That bill has been introduced session after session after session. There's one right now that we could move forward, and I think it's incredibly important that we have people on the record of how they feel about that. What a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Can't get leadership to put it on the floor.
And the thing is, crosses the aisle.
Oh,
it's failed
this
to pass
is
in all kinds of Congresses. It's
bipartisan issue.
Yeah.
It's a bipartisan issue. The other piece that I think is incredibly important is that we have conflict of interest policies for the executive branch in the White House, particularly in spaces like cryptocurrency and in family dealings that are enforceable. There's legislation out to do that too. Again, we can't get leadership to bring it to the floor. And the last piece that I think is incredibly important is we need a code of ethics and a conflict of interest policy for the Supreme Court. We have people who have cases in front of the Supreme Court giving private gifts to our justices, and there is no enforceable law to prohibit it. I mean, this is just common sense.
But is there not, if we put the court aside for a moment, look at Congress, is there not that kind of policy in force in Congress, which
Not on
doesn't
stock
seem to
trading.
do any good?
Not on stock trading. There is actually a very
Well, it's more of a generic type policy, isn't there?
in
terms of integrity and
There is, and honestly, the ethics committee in the House is very active and very thorough. The code of ethics is actually very, very strong. Members of Congress cannot accept lavish meals. We cannot accept gifts. We cannot. It is very, very regulated. What's not regulated is our investment portfolios. Now, you have to publicly disclose that, and I think that was intended to be
yeah, but that's just dollars and cents, isn't it?
It's just dollars and cents. It's just dollars and cents. We shouldn't be able to, listen, I have a 401k. I'm not those people spend a lot of time trading stocks. I don't spend any time trading stocks. I have a 401k, but to actually, and we have to have a retirement, right? But to be able to take those investments and put them in separately managed funds with no individual control over that seems to be the bare minimum around investment, and that is not in law right now. So there are plenty of rules of ethics for Congress. I don't want to say and actually push back on the idea that every member of Congress is on the take, because they're not. And I have to tell you that one of the best things about Congress that actually was a surprise to me is the amazing people who are there for the right reasons, who are patriotic and want to do the right things for the country.
I fully agree, but it's always the few that make the news.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm going to pick on her, I guess, but every time we hear about stock trading, we hear about Nancy Pelosi and how much money they've made over the years.
Yeah.
She's become the face of it. Well, that's too bad, because she doesn't represent everybody in Congress.
Right. Marjorie Taylor Greene, same thing.
Same thing. No more than we hear about some, off-the-road police officer who does something stupid, he doesn't represent everybody in uniform.
Right.
It just is. But the other side of it is the media loves to jump all over these stories.
They do, and I also think
And
that
the public
we need
likes to hear them.
the public likes to hear them, but honestly, we need a majority of people on both sides to push these kinds of bills forward. So, it's both a leadership issue of bringing that up, but it's also, is leadership saying we're not taking up the bill to protect people so that they don't have to vote on it. And that's just the reality of politics. But, I think that an anti-corruption agenda, to say that our very first objective on every single day needs to be making things easier for the American people. I mean, here in mid-Michigan, people have a really hard time affording basic things. I keep talking about, 3 weeks ago, I went to go buy a pot roast because we love the crock pot roast. I mean, everybody I know makes the $25 for a pot roast that's fed 3 people. Mm-hmm. This is what we need to be worrying about.
But the other hand of that is, how do you control that? It's a commodity price. How do you control it?
Well, we have, listen, I sit on the agriculture committee. The input costs are out of control.
You're on the agriculture committee. When are we going to get a farm bill?
That's a really good question. Big components of the farm bill were done in January as a part of the Resolution 1, but it's ridiculous we don't have a farm bill. I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the ag committee was, I represent a lot of farmers.
Well, I was going to say, where you live.
Like, let's have a look around us, right? But it's also, it's a workhorse committee. It's always historically been a place where Democrats and Republicans work together on things, except for this Congress is incredibly, incredibly partisan. So we are been told by the chair that we were going to do, quote, a skinny farm bill, which means all the things that were left when of the provisions that were put in HR1.
Like a CR.
Yeah, no. This is actually working on the things that are left to get done.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's called a skinny farm bill, because they jammed some of it into it
would be
the
attached
budget
to
bill.
what's already done. All
yes,
right.
exactly.
Okay.
And we were supposed to do it in October. Haven't seen any language. We were shut down for a good part of October, all of October actually, and then we were going to do it in November. Still have not seen any language for it. So the question is in the middle. I mean, this particular Congress is not doing very much work on legislation in terms of what actually gets to the president's desk. Historically low number of bills have gotten to the president's desk, and there's a lot of dysfunction. But there is a lot of pressure inside the Ag Committee from Democrats and Republicans. We need to get this farm bill done. Our farmers are depending on us. But, when we're talking about the price of beef and the cost of inputs for farmers, we have to talk about tariffs, because this is a really big problem. And it's not just affecting what's happening to our farmers. It's affecting what's happening at the grocery store, too.
I will take a break, come back with Kristen McDonald-Rivet, our congresswoman from this area. More ahead after these notes.
But we want to educate you and inform you, like, these things can happen, so you're educated, and they do happen.
She's right. It's estimated that more than 3,000 infants in the U.S. die every year from unsafe sleep environments, and that includes our babies right here in Saginaw. We understand you want your baby close, but let's keep them safe with the ABCs of safe sleep, alone, on their back, and in a crib or pack and play. Safe sleep every night and every nap. Learn more at BeWellSaginaw.org. Had your family's eyes
different places for so many different things. So all of that to say, when we talk about tariffs, the tariffs have made that much, much worse. And so when you look at, potash, which is a fertilizer we put in the ground, potash, the tariffs on that, which we get a lot of that from Canada, have made it incredibly expensive. And then when you start to look at the machinery, all of the pieces, the tariffs that are added on to the machines in the field, all of those pieces are getting more and more expensive. We're watching that continuously go up. And then the markets that we are selling are what we grow here to all over the world are suddenly have retaliatory tariffs on them. So we completely shut down the markets in China for soybeans. Soybean markets. I always say mid-Michigan, we're powered essentially by soybeans, beans, and sugar beets. The impact of the tariffs on, tariffs off, and the lack of predictability, as well as closing down whole markets that, by the way, China is coming in and filling, whether we're talking about Brazil or Argentina or China. These are places that are hurting us going into the future. We know that tariffs are an important strategic tool. I'm not a no tariffs ever person, especially here in Michigan. We've seen the impact that tariffs can have. But what they can't be done is in kind of erratic, emotional way, depending on various winds, swinging back and forth. That is really, really hurting our family farms, particularly our soybean farms.
All right, so let me ask it this way. The president has said the reason he did what he did was because the world was mistreating us, took advantage of us. Probably true. Has he just gone too far in what he's done? Would you agree with the method but not the amount?
I think it's more nuanced than that, Art. I think that the first and foremost, it's that he keeps changing his mind. And he will put on a tariff and then pull it back and then increase it and then lower it. And then, when you're running a business, and that's what our farms are, but we're also talking about the businesses that are all across our region and across our state. What you need to be able to know is what you're going to pay for the things you need and what you can sell your product by. That cannot change on a weekly or monthly basis. I talked to
Well, I would like to stop one thing, though. Yeah, you'd like to know what those input costs are. You're not going to know how much you can sell it for until you're ready to go to market, because that changes every day.
It does change every day, but not in wild swings. You don't
sometimes.
If you're going to take your crop to market, and suddenly a whole international market shuts down and is closed to you, that is a huge swing from what you predicted. A certain amount of predictability. There is predictability that you can have 6 weeks, 8 weeks out. That is not present right now. With the soybeans, we know that market has been completely shut down. Half of our soybean market is gone. Now,
China made a commitment to buy X number of metric tons.
They did make that commitment, and they have fulfilled less than 7% of it.
Yep.
And we saw that in the last term too. China says things, and then that doesn't actually happen. So right now, Congress is looking at and hopefully bringing forward a bit of a bailout for our farmers who have been hurt by the tariffs. The problem is that it's dysfunctional, and we need to see a farm relief bill now, and we haven't seen anything. Zero language, right? And the language in the dollar
Who's
amounts.
responsible for the farm bill language? Who
That-
actually sits down and puts pen to paper?
Well, it's there are a lot of committee staff that actually write the bill, but the direction of what goes into it will come from the Secretary of Agriculture and the committee chairs. But ultimately, you need
Have
to go
they
ahead
done
of.
nothing?
We have not seen anything. But we are pressing on it every single day. I'm pressing on it every single day. Look, we can't play politics with this. This is what not only economically drives our communities, but it feeds
Sure.
the country, right? We can't play politics with this. But the issue that I think is important here is when I'm out in fields talking to farmers, they want to farm. They want to produce food. They don't want a subsidy while they watch their crops die in the field. Right? What we actually need to be doing is working on an economic strategy that we are selling what America produces all across the world and to Americans. This is what our farm legacy has been built on.
It is true, but it's also true that we've taught the world how to compete with us. We've given them the technology
It's
to
true.
grow the crops.
That's true
produce
across the
the
board. In farming, yes, you see that in
Yeah.
semiconductors. You see that in
Yeah.
all kinds of places. We have developed the technology here, and then
We were
and
the
then they take
innovators,
it. Right? And
you know?
we've given up huge spaces of the market in that space. You're absolutely right. So there's not. I'm not campaigning against or railing against an America First agenda. We all want the United States to be first in everything, right? But the policies that we're using to get there, I think, are erratic and dangerous to our economy in a lot of places, and in particular affecting our farms.
Take a break and be back. One final segment with Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet.
This week, it's a year-end.
Back with you, Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet in studio with me. We were just talking during the break about a variety of things. We mentioned we were talking about local news.
Yeah.
And you made a comment about how difficult it is to really get it. And it's, the landscape has changed so much, and much of that is due to the internet and social media,
right,
and all of that. Because, in broadcasting, media companies have had their problems recently. But in broadcasting, a huge percentage, at least in this building, a huge percentage of our bottom line has become digital. And we've had no choice. I mean, that you have to.
You have to do that.
If you're going to survive, you got to do what the market's saying you need to do.
Right, right.
And it's tough. I understand it.
But I think it used to. This is where my age is going to start to show. But when I was,
she's a young girl,
young girl at 55. But local newspapers used to be. I can remember our sports, all of our high school sports were in our local newspaper. We knew what our city councils were doing. We knew, what our county commissions were doing. And everybody kind of got the news of the community at that level, which is really, really hard to get in a digital space. And, more people are getting their news of what's happening locally from a Facebook comment than
from unknown sources.
Unknown sources, right. That's exactly
qualified sources.
Local elections are harder and harder to understand who's running and what they stand for and what they've done. I mean, most of that has disappeared, and I think it's a really big problem.
Well, you're not going to get disagreement from me. I mean, first of all, I don't call this a news program. It's an opinion show. But we do news things like we're doing right now, talking to newsmakers.
Right.
But there are very few of us left.
Right.
This is a dying art. No pun intended.
It's important. It's a place for people to hear different perspectives and for to call in about things that actually have to do with our region, that in the middle of Michigan, the things that are worrying our families, which is very different than Detroit, right? It's very different than Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. And when our news comes from those places, it lacks the direct relevance to our lives.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but child care is one of the things you've been involved in. Tell us about.
Oh my gosh, I've been working on child care my entire career.
That everything to do with the fact you have 6 kids?
Yeah, well, I've paid my fair share of child care bills, but what I hear overwhelming. I mean, we know. I talked about affordability. I talk about affordability all the time, and we've talked about food, housing, healthcare. But the other really big thing is child care, and we know that childcare's business model is broken. We know parents can't afford to pay what it costs to do childcare well. So we're just looking for ways to help with that. So I just introduced a bill alongside with a Republican from Iowa. The two of us are partnering to get this done, that would allow you to use a 529 plan to pay for childcare. So 529s are the plans people typically put pre-tax dollars in to pay for college. Mm-hmm. And you can open an account, a 529 account for a child when they're born, and use that for money to flow in and out to pay for childcare, and then keep it in place and continue to put money in there that's invested for them to be able to use after high school as well. It's not the solution, but it's part of the solution that will help probably reduce childcare costs for a lot of people by 20%.
Well, it seems to me that'd be a no-brainer.
Seems like a no-brainer.
How long will it take to get through Congress?
Oh my good Lord, I don't know, but I am working on it. This is one of those things that is just it's a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a bipartisan issue. We've got a Republican woman and a Democratic woman leading on this, talking about it every day. And whenever I talk to people about it, they say, this is absolutely what we need to do. And so I here's what I know. I'm going to get up every day and I'm going to work on it and build the coalition. And there are, childcare is a mom and a dad issue, but it's got a lot of women care about this, and we have more women in Congress now than we ever have. So this is where my focus is.
Well, it would seem to be a no-brainer because, first of all, there's no cost to the government.
Well,
no
yeah,
dollars
right.
out of the kitty.
Right. Right.
It's just a change in what you can do with it.
Right.
What you can do with your money that you're putting into it.
Exactly.